You're gonna make me fucking sing again.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
It was like a honeycomb's big. Yeah. It's not small. No. And then they had like the
Beautiful.
fuck you, Billy.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
We doing this?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. All right, we have got a guest today. Daniel Madrid is with us, and Daniel is, did I say that right?
Yep.
Madrid. And Daniel is a listener, and he sent us an email. I know Daniel a little bit. In fact, I just met Daniel a couple of weeks ago, and he'll explain why I met him and what he's doing. But he had been a listener to the podcast, and he's got an interesting story to tell. So this podcast is all about interesting stories and people who have made it or are trying to make it or trying to do themselves better, particularly if they come from a difficult background. You don't have to have a difficult background, I think, hopefully, to get something from our podcasts. The point is that regardless of where you come from, success can be attained no matter what. And I know people who struggle who had it easy, and I know people who struggle who have had it hard. The point is, from my perspective anyway, that anyone can do it. And the fact that some of us have had it harder than others in trying to get there, hopefully is a little bit more push or inspiration or a little bit of charge added to people's batteries to get out there and try it. So with that said, Daniel, welcome to the Jerry Brazie podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. Look at you right in that mic. That's perfect. We can hear you loud and clear. So Daniel and I don't know that each other that well. We started right before we did the podcast to talk about that and kind of fill me in on the blanks. And then we thought, as long as there's nothing off limits that he wasn't uncomfortable talking or that he was uncomfortable talking about, we will get to know each other during the podcast. So without further ado, Daniel, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am a driver. I drive truck. I've been driving truck for almost 15 years now. I've been in transportation for about 18 years total.
Okay.
I used to work down the road over off 181st.
How'd you get into truck driving?
There's a long story.
Give me the short one.
Well, so I had a kid. I got married, had a kid, and I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to feed her.
Born and raised here in Portland?
I was born in Glendale, raised in Burbank, California, moved up here in 91.
Okay.
So
how old are you now?
35.
And how old were you? Let's see, I met her, right? And she was 16, if I remember.
Yep, that's Haley.
So you were 19 years old, and you had a baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just turning 19.
Just turning 19. How old's mama?
She's 4 years older than I.
Okay, so she was 22, 23.
Yep.
All right. So right off the bat, you're breaking the golden rule. If you've listened to this podcast and many other podcasts that people talk about, the 3 ways to escape kind of that background is that you graduate from high school, you don't get married until you're 28 years old, and you don't have kids before you get married.
If I could do it again, I would. I would do it that way.
Yeah. Right. So again, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that's right off the bat, you're perfect for this podcast because this podcast is all about people who've broken those rules. All right. So now you're 19 years old, just turned 19, scared shitless, I'm guessing, because you've got a kid. What's your background? Let's back up even further than before truck driving. What's your background? Grew up in Glendale, you said?
Yeah. And then moved here in 91. Me and my brother and my 2 sisters.
Okay.
So 4 of us total. Single mom. So dad was never in the picture. Mom worked.
Did you ever meet your dad?
About 5 times.
Okay.
Yeah. He actually just died. So
when you were a kid, you never had no father at all?
No father. And my brother was older than me, so I didn't even have a father figure.
Okay.
And my brother was out of the house. With the exception of I was in the Big Brother, Big Sister program.
Okay. Right.
And my big brother, awesome guy, taught me a lot.
Good.
Really liked the guy.
How old were you when you hooked up with him?
I think I was 10 or 11.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So young enough to be influenced.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
So you guys move up here. You're how old when you move here? 91. So you're
8.
8 or 10.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
8. Um,
Mom move up here for work.
well, we moved up to get away from all the bullshit that was happening down in California. I mean, it was bad. There was gangs, there was violence, and to get away from, I assume, my dad. So we moved up here, and then we got into like a shelter of some sort.
Right.
Are you familiar with Kings Row on McLaughlin?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so
The outdoor motel
yeah, that
they
rent by the hour.
they rent by the hour. Yeah.
So when we first came here, my mom went to that hotel to see if we could stay there, and they're like, "Oh, you don't want to stay here? We rent by the hour."
Yeah. That's the. Yeah, that is the downtrodden part of town. So they say it's a little bit different these
Right,
days, but yeah, back in the day.
So grew up in basically Oak Grove.
So you grew up in Portland, essentially, for people who are listening that don't know the area, and grew up. Your mom, she moved here to get away from something. So did she have something when she got here? She work? What did?
She didn't have anything. She didn't know college education or anything. She had 2 or 3 jobs. Grew up in government housing.
Right.
It sucked.
Yep.
Being a poor kid.
Yep.
Which I'm sure you know, because I mean you told your story about it.
Yep.
And
I always say about being a poor kid that I had no idea. I get the question all of the time. It's amazing to me how much it comes up where people go, that had to suck for you they're empathetic to the fact that I grew up the way that I grew up. And I say, no, there's no reason. I didn't know I was poor, right? I didn't know I was poor till I was old enough to be aware that I was poor, which isn't really till you start to compare yourself with your peers. So about the time, what's that? 12, 13 years old, maybe 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. I didn't ever think about it before that. So for me, it was just, stealing food from the store was what you did on your way home from school.
Right. I think I was 12 when I figured out that we were living in government housing because my neighbor asked, "So how much do you guys pay for rent?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "Because that's government housing, right?" I'm like, "Really? Like, what does that mean?" And then he told me everything. I'm like, "Oh, fuck. Okay. Sorry."
Right.
God, now I feel like a lowlife. I'm like, okay, so I got to do something about this. So I think I was 11 or 12 when he asked me that. So immediately then I started mowing lawns.
So you went out at 12 years old. Where did you? He says you're living in government housing. Where is the wherewithal for you to say to yourself, "I need to go hit it. I got to go earn some money"?
Because I want to be like everybody else.
Okay.
I don't want to be that person who stands out because I'm poor.
Right.
I want to do something about it. So go and mow lawns. That's the only thing I could think of. We'd charge $20 a lawn, and we'd go and mow everybody's lawn. And I remember I had $140 in my pocket, and I felt like I was a millionaire.
Mom didn't push you to do this. No one else pushed you to do this. You were just like, I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to make some extra money.
Right. Yeah.
So almost somewhere that was born into you.
Right. I guess. Well, seeing my mom working 2 jobs,
Sure.
and having her never be there, that showed me the work dedication that she had, and I
Right.
knew that hey, I need to do this too.
Yeah. Mowing lawns is an interesting one. One of the most steadfast business rules that I live by was taught to me by my lawn mowing gig. I was probably 8 or 10 years old, and the neighbor lady way, way down across this field and way down from where I lived that my mother knew, and her daughter babysat us. That's another story. She babysat us one time. My little brher and I locked her in a closet and tied her up literally all day in the closet at the end of the her last name was Ford. I'm terrible. It's so bad. Yeah. She didn't come back after that. But so Mrs. Ford had us I offered to mow her lawn, and she said, "How much?" And I told her how much. I had never been to her house. So I said, "I'll go mow the lawn." And I don't remember how much it was, but I'm going to say I probably said, "I'll mow your lawn for $5." And I got there, and the lawn was 8-10 inches deep.
Yeah.
It was thick as shit.
Yeah.
It was,
10
a
acres in the
quarter of an
bag.
acre or something.
Yeah.
It was gigantic. And I remember literally, and I don't know if she did this on purpose. I don't know if she was just this way. I remember saying to her, $5. I don't even think it was $5, right? This had been circa 78, and it might have been $1 or $2. And I remember saying to her, man, whatever, that $2 I quoted you, she said, that's the price you gave me. Here's your $2. I mean, it must have taken me 2 hours. I sweated my ass off. It's 500 degrees back and forth with the goddamn lawnmower. You know how when you have to do
Tilt
real
it
thick
back
grass,
and
tilt
drop
it
it
back
down.
and kind of eat it and pull it back. And I remember first I had to push the motherfucking lawnmower, which was on her house was half a mile away. I remember to this day, maybe I'm 10. I remember to this day the lesson I learned there. I use that every day, all the time. Yeah, don't price shit unless you know what you're getting paid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't know you got to know what you're getting yourself into.
Oh yeah, I know.
Otherwise, you're hosed.
I detail on the side from what I do, and as you know, because I did some work for you.
Right.
My rule is no, you don't do quotes over the phone.
Yeah, you got to see
says,
it.
Oh, it's not that bad. You get there and you're working on it for 5-6 hours, and you only charge them, $100.
Yeah, that's me mowing the lawn when I was 10 years old. All right, so you're 12 years old. You're going to go mow lawns.
Yep.
Or you went and mowed lawns. You got $140 fucking dollars in your pocket. Boom.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah,
I
felt
would
like I
have
was
felt
rich.
like a fat cat. I didn't even know. Yeah, that's impressive.
So
what's a 12-year-old poor kid living out on the road do with $140 in his pocket?
I just blew it on shit. Mountain Dew, chips, you know, all the
good stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff that we couldn't buy, because we would go once a month to Winco and I think we would spend $400, and because we got government assistance, so once a month we would go grocery shopping, and we never got all the good stuff. So that $140 went to chips and cookies and stuff like that.
Stuff that a 12-year-old kid would buy if you could buy whatever you wanted.
Right.
I've told the story before. When I was a kid, some of the kids I went to school with had dads who had money, and they would come to school with Hostess fruit pies. And I remember the blackberry. To this day, I'll eat a Hostess fruit. I don't eat that way anymore, but man, I love those Hostess fruit pies. And so I remember laying in bed on the bunk I shared in this little room I had with my brother, and laying on that top bunk and just dreaming, when I get big, we had a garage. You'd go down the stairs into this garage, and I would dream that I would open the garage door and it would just be cases of Hostess blackberry fruit pies, because that's what you dream about when you're 10 years old, and you think if you had money, if only I would. When I get money, when I get old, this is all I'm going to eat is Hostess fruit pies.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're thinking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So and back to when I was saying my mom worked 2 jobs. So when she worked that much, it was me and my sister at home by ourselves. She was always at work. So during the summer, we would just dick around and get in trouble.
Yeah.
Find something to do. I remember when I was 16, me and my buddy Eugene, he lived across the street from me. We were best buds. We would get in trouble all the time, street racing, stuff like that. I remember the neighbor came and banged on the door, told us, if you don't stop, I'm going to call the cops. And well, my next door neighbor was a cop. He's a sheriff. So I just, well, go talk to him yourself. Go tell him.
Right.
I was a punk.
He's right there.
Yeah. And I just got in a lot of trouble.
Right.
I remember one year we went and bought a whole bunch of Piccolo Pete's.
Yep.
Those fireworks.
Of course.
Well, I was also smoking a lot of pot too. So, I wasn't always there all the time. And I came up with this idea. I'm like, hey, let's make a Piccolo Pete bomb. Let's just smash it up. Kaboom. Well, my friend had the wise idea to throw one into a porta potty.
Ooh,
Blew it to pieces.
Yeah,
I bet.
made a big old mess.
That compression.
Yeah. Well, imagine getting in trouble for that. No, it's a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Considering.
Right.
He did it on school property.
Ah.
So, and this is before Measure 11. After Measure 11, I would have been locked up still.
Measure 11 for everybody listening is the minimum sentencing guidelines that you get that we passed, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years ago now.
Yeah, it's basically any big crime that happens on school property or anything to do with children and stuff. Luckily, it was during the summer. It was from, during 4th of July. So
and you got caught doing it.
Got caught. Yeah. See, I was just there. I didn't actually do it.
Right.
But I was
That's
there.
what everybody says.
Yeah.
Guilty by
But I mean, it was a big deal.
I didn't do it.
It was insane.
Oh yeah, bomb blowing up at a school.
So we haul ass to my friend's house, and he's like, "Oh, you can't stay here." So I'm like, "Oh, fuck, okay." So we'll go back to my house.
So you're running from the people who saw you do it, or what do you?
I didn't think anybody saw us, but I'm like, we just need to get the hell out of here because boom.
It was a big boom. I'm sure.
During the day. So we took off. We wanted to go back to my house, and we're looking out the window, and he lived across the street from me. At his house, 2 cop cars show up. I'm like, fuck, what's going on here? They know. So we had this plan. What we did was we made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then he stored his lawnmower in my garage. We opened the garage, grabbed our lawnmowers, started walking down the street eating our sandwiches, making it like
trying to look like you're working for a living.
Yeah, like we just came home on lunch.
Boys.
Seemed like a good plan.
Yeah, they weren't.
Right.
They didn't buy it.
They didn't.
No, fuck. They skid in front of us. Cop took me to the ground. I deserved it, you know. But I mean, although I didn't do it, I was still in the company of somebody who did that. So I mean, I'm not saying I'm not at wrong here. So got arrested.
How old?
I think I was 15 or 16.
Okay.
In juvie for 27 days. That was crazy.
Yep.
Got to tour the Oregon State Penitentiary.
Which juvie?
Donald E. Long.
Oh yeah, JDH, right over there on. I may have been in there once or twice, right there on 60th and Gleason.
Okay.
I know it well.
Okay. Well, before that, I had never been to Portland, proper Portland.
Oh, okay.
And when they released me or whatever, Mom's like, "No, I'm not picking you up." I'm like, "Fuck, okay." So they gave me a bus ticket. Well, I had never ridden public transportation. I just stayed in my own little bubble. So I had to figure out how to get from that jail back to home, which is 20 miles away. That was the freakiest shit ever. I mean, it was weird.
Right.
Anyways, so yeah, they put me on probation, and
but back to let me interrupt you a minute. Back to the bus and taking the bus.
Yeah.
I always talk about, and again, as you tell the story, I try to relate. At least I do this in my head, and so I'll say what I'm thinking. I try to relate this stuff back to real world, and how does anybody listening to this benefit from hearing about you having to take the bus and not knowing how to do it? Mm-hmm. How insurmountable is a 15-year-old just getting out of juvenile detention for 27 days? Mom says, fuck it, you're on your own. Right. You're sitting there in a place you've never been, in a part of town you've never seen, and you're on your own getting home, which it had to have been a 2-bus transfer, I'm guessing, to get out to where you're talking about living from from where you were. At that point, that seemed insurmountable. Now, by today's standards and the life that you have today, how dumb is that?
Oh, it's yeah,
right?
Totally.
So your new normal after you climbed off that bus at your house had moved exponentially. Your ability and your independence and the way that you viewed yourself, right, changed exponentially from taking a bus.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big learning lesson. Yeah. So at the time it seemed daunting, but then once you got it down, you're like, I'll bet you walked away. I don't remember if you remember it specifically, but I would bet that you came away from that feeling even more independent and like you could do even more. And that began that process of you moving out of that little bubble you were living in Southeast Milwaukee.
Dude, that freaked me out. I never wanted to go through that again, ever. Yeah, no, absolutely. So they put me on probation, and the thing was I had to stay away from my friend Eugene, who was my best friend. And when you're growing up, you got your best friend. I mean, you guys are attached. So I had to stay away from him. Well, started hanging out with this other kid named Jake. Now this Jake, he was an asshole. Like he's everybody that everybody's parents warn you about. Hey, stay away from this kid. He's no good.
What drew you to Jake?
He had a cool car.
Okay. And again, 16 years old or so?
Yeah, he had a cool car. I'm like, oh, this guy's rad. I'm going to hang out with him.
What's a cool car?
It was
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a 95 Honda Civic EX.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Could
rad.
stay away from that.
So I was like, all right, cool. So hung out with him. And then I got my first job at Burgerville. I worked there for 3 days. On the third day, I was riding with Jake. Jake picked me up to take me into work. We got pulled over because he was driving like an asshole. I called in. I said, hey, I'm so sorry I'm running late. I'll be there as soon as I can. They said, don't bother showing up. It was at that point where I'm like, okay, I need to change what's going on here. I need to change who I'm hanging out with, what I've been doing, because this isn't working. I just got fired from my first job. So
3 days in.
3 days in.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't even get to learn how to make the secret sauce.
Right. God damn it. Be nice to know
We need
that.
Right. I know. So
Those fucking hamburgers are good from that
oh, yeah.
place, man.
This is a super popular burger place in this area.
Yeah, Burgerville. It's only in Oregon and Washington, I think. Yeah,
Yep.
so everybody around the country doesn't know what it is. There's
it's
some
our In and Out.
their claim to fame. Yeah, that's true. It's our In and Out. Their claim to fame is that they got some sort of sauce. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's some sort of mixture of something,
like
some
mayo,
sort of
mustard,
alchemy that
it's
goes into it. I think some
pickle
witches
in
are
there.
brought in to help
Right.
to help put that shit on there. But man, those are good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good shit.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I said, okay, I need to change the way I'm doing things. So,
dude, I haven't had lunch today. I'm fucking sorry to interrupt you, man. Those goddamn hamburgers are all greasy and fucked up. You know, they're kind of fucked up. They don't look right. The normal hamburger, the regular ones, they don't look like McDonald's. They're all kind of greasy and motherfucker, those are good. All right, sorry, go ahead. I'm just starving and you brought up Burgerville. I love Burgerville.
can we get a snack?
Yeah, seriously. We run somebody out and eat while we talk.
So it was at that point I'm like, all right, I got to change the way I'm doing things. So I left there. Of course, I left hanging out with Jake, and I'm like, okay, I can't do that anymore. So that's about the time I met my wife. Now,
so is this an epiphany that you had, or do you remember thinking this specifically, or was it just over time after getting pulled over and getting fired? How did this hit you?
It just made me realize, hey, what you're doing isn't right because things aren't going well for you. You don't have anything. You just got fired from your first job. Why? Well, it's because you're hanging out with Jake, and Jake's an idiot and got pulled over and got you fired. I can't blame Jake. I can only blame myself.
Right.
So it was about that time that I met my wife, and my wife was my neighbor's sister. So I was like, hey, what's up?
Yep.
And, we've been together. It'll be 20 years it's 18 years now.
Wow.
We're about to celebrate our 20th. But I hat off to her. She put me on the straight line. She said, all right, I'm tired of paying for shit. You need to get a job. So I'm like, okay, where am I going to go? And she's like, oh, you need to figure it out. So I got a job at Rite Aid, working. It's a drugstore for those of you that don't know. Working graveyard because that's the only thing they had available. Stocking shelves. It sucked. It wasn't fun at all.
Sucks ass.
Yeah. I was adding up all my work history. I've had 20 jobs in the last, I don't know, since I was 16. So it's 18 years?
Right.
And my wife has put up with me through all of it.
And your current job though, you've had for a while?
4 months.
Oh, no, not a while. Oh, shit. All right. Well, keep going then.
Yeah, and it's the best one yet.
Yeah. So you're 19. You're how old at this point?
I was.
She's like, get the fuck out, get a job.
Yeah, I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going to school?
No.
Okay.
I didn't even graduate school.
You what?
I dropped out.
Right.
High school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of high school.
How old were you?
16.
Okay.
Yeah. I was hanging. Like I said, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd.
So you know everything.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I think I do.
You got it all down.
Right. And like I said, I was working nights, and then we find out that we're pregnant. I'm like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do?
Right.
Now I have it. My mentality completely changed because then okay, well, I'm not just working just to put gas in the car. I'm working because now I'm gonna have another mouth to feed. So then after I left there, I started doing apartment maintenance, and that's when my first kid was born. Let's see here.
So the kid being born, was it before or after the kid being born that you were feeling this pressure to go, earn and get out and get a job?
It was before and then tenfold after.
Tenfold after. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so much pressure. I'm like, okay, I can't fail. I can fail anything else but this, So after that, then I started selling cars because I'm like, oh, okay, these salesmen, they make bank. And I love cars, so I can do this easily. Well, when the Nissan 350Z first came out, I loved that car. I sold the most.
Everyone did.
I sold the most
Speak for
350Zs out of.
Didn't have a V8 in it, man.
Oh, well,
That car was hot,
287
though, for a
horsepower,
long time.
Was that the twin turbo
5.3.
one?
No, it was a V6 3.5.
V6, right.
VQ 35
Yeah,
DE
didn't
motor.
they do a turbo one?
No,
Oh,
no,
no wonder I didn't like
no.
it.
That's the Skyline you're thinking of.
Okay.
Godzilla. So then, anyways, I sold the most 350Zs out of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Northern California.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Selling
then,
what you love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I love that car and
Right.
I could sell it no problem. And then sales died. I'm like, fuck, okay, what am I going to do now? So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go sell high-end cars. So I went to Tonkin Chevy. So, okay, I'll sell some Corvettes. Gran Turismo's right across the street. I can sell some high-end cars. I sold one Corvette and then I sold about 4 trucks. Didn't make dick. On the day that my wife and I got married, I got a paycheck for negative like $40.
Right.
I owed them money.
Yeah.
That's how sales works,
Right.
So I'm like, fuck, okay, got to figure it out. So, I mean, I got a couple jobs in between there, and then I went to work at the lumber mill. I had seen an ad and saw that it was paying, I think it was $18 an hour. I'm like, fuck, that's good money. I can do that. So I go and I work at the lumber mill. And I was there for, I think, like a year. And I was running a machine. It's called a barker, or it was an edger. So it just takes the edges off of the boards and then it can be cut and sorted and everything. I was working on a machine because a piece of wood had gotten stuck in there, had my locks and tags on it. Well, the millwright he had a master key to my locks. He took the locks off and turned the machine on right as I'm grabbing the piece of wood out. And I almost lost my arm.
Oh, it ate up your
man.
arm.
Yeah, I went all the way down to the bone.
Right.
I mean, it tore me up. I was in the machine for about a minute. So, I mean, I drove myself to the hospital because, I didn't want to leave my car there. I had this nice Honda Prelude, and I'm like, fuck, I'm not leaving this in Malala. It's gone. So called the wife, said, hey, I got cut. I'm on my way to the hospital. I'll be home before you wake up. Well, I wasn't home and she freaked out, came to the hospital. So, I mean, it was all bad. So then
How bad? What's bad?
Well, I mean, it went all the way down to the bone. I
So
almost
what
lost
they do?
my arm.
Like skin grafts and shit, or how do they
Nothing.
sew you up?
Nope.
Leave
no
it alone?
stitches. Yep. They just left it. So my arm
Did you
looks
spend
like
time in the
ground beef.
hospital, or you
Just for one day.
just for one day?
Yeah. So that happened on a Friday. I was back to work on Monday.
Right on.
I couldn't leave my job.
Right.
I can't not make money, And people ask me to this day, well, how come you didn't sue them? Well, I didn't want to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to sue these guys. I can, potentially get a large sum of cash, but in the meantime, I'm not going to have any money, and I need to survive.
Have a place to work at or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, and those fuckers on the day after I came off light duty, they laid me off.
Right.
So then I started looking at ways to where I can make good money.
Too
I'm
many
like,
people,
okay.
though. Let's go back to this. Too many people are looking for that way out that doesn't involve their responsibility. Look, if you got your arm cut and all of that, good on you. But the first thing you shouldn't think, again, this is talking about success. The first thing you shouldn't think of is what's this going to get me?
Right.
Right. You should go back to doing what you're doing, because as soon as you let anything like that creep in, as soon as you let that kind of thought creep in, your whole mindset changes.
Yeah.
I've seen it many, many times. And particularly there is something about getting something for nothing. You go, well, I'm not getting anything for nothing. I got my fucking arm caught in a shredder and it ate, my skin down to the bone. It did. You're right. But I'm saying you have to almost choose, because rarely do people come back from that the same that they did going in. Let's say you had the mindset that you're talking about here, Your arm gets cut. You do your thing. You're suing everybody. You not work for 6 months and all the rest of that. And you're having to hide your arm in your shirt when you come out and go work out at the gym or all the bullshit that goes on.
Yeah.
You're not the same fucking person,
Right.
because you're not the one making the call on the shots anymore. There's attorneys, there's doctors, there's all of those that take all of the power away from you. And you're essentially just doing what you're told at that point. It's tough to come back from that the same person that you were going in. So good on you. If you know me, just to my own experience, to say I have many ones like that, but I had the one that fucked my back up for the rest of my life, where the dumpster fell on top of me from the
terrible.
second story, right?
That's terrible.
And boom, but I picked it back up as fast as I could, look around, make sure nobody saw me, because they're going to fire my ass. I was making $5 an hour, $6 an hour, and I couldn't strap that fucker back on that forklift fast enough. Get that forklift back up before anybody knows to clean my mess up. I remember cleaning, because the forklift turned upside, or the dumpster fell, it tipped and fell on top of me, half of me in it and half of me out. So all the shit fell on top of me too, and all that shit had to be cleaned up. I remember flipping that dumpster over, getting that forklift down and throwing that dumpster, throwing all that shit back into the dumpster and lifting it back up. I couldn't fucking hardly walk, but let alone worry about going in to see the boss. Now, here I am all these years later. What do I got to complain about? Nothing. But I've had all these surgeries and my back's been fucked up from that day forward, and the nerves got crushed and everything else, but there's no excuses. I don't have any excuses. So I would rather have lived the life that I have, certainly, than have gotten $100,000 payout.
Yeah.
That money would have been long fucking gone.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I was 18 years old, 19 years old. So
yeah,
good on
what's the
you.
average person that's 19 going to do with $100,000?
Yeah.
They're going to go to Vegas, or not
I'd have
Vegas, but
wrapped
they're going
that
to fucking blow it.
car that I would have bought. I would have wrapped that car around a telephone pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's what I would have done.
Sure. Yeah.
So, all right. So you survived that. They shit can you. I love this story.
Yeah. Yeah. So they laid me off the day after I came off of light duty. And that day, it was August 11th. August 12th is my wife's birthday. We were going camping. So we got to go camping with this on our mind. Like, fuck, okay, I'm unemployed. So that whole time we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? So then my brother-in-law drives truck, and he's like, dude, you should drive truck. I'm like, okay, how can I get my CDL? So I found a company, Schneider, started with them. They had their own school where they put you through and get you your CDL.
Mm-hmm.
It was the best decision I ever made. I love driving truck. I don't know what it is. I get in there, and I don't know if it's just like, okay, my balls just swell, because I'm in this big manly machine, 80,000 pounds.
Well, to be fair, going backwards, you were always interested in cars, and obviously, if you're interested in cars, you're interested in mechanics, and if you're interested in the mechanics and how things work, you're interested in the physics of it. You're interested in the noise and the size and the rumble and the gas and the turbos, and you sold cars, so you understood horsepower and how all that worked. I mean, I get that, you get that. I don't know. You're into cars too, Billy. Yeah. So I mean, all of us, the three of us sitting here, all get that. I'm going to guess 95% of men that are listening to this get that. So I understand that. Yeah. I love driving them big rigs.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. I was over the road for many years. To this day, I've driven about 2 million miles. No accidents, no tickets. Yeah.
Knock on that table, goddamn it. There you go. I don't want us to be the fucking tomorrow I hear dude's not coming back to detail my cars because he wrapped his truck around a telephone pole. Right.
Yeah, and even now I haul hazardous materials, chemicals. I haul some of the most nastiest chemicals on the planet. A cup of this stuff, you get a cup on you, it'll stop your heart.
Wow.
So now's the time not to get in an accident.
Right, for sure.
Anyway, so
you've earned that. Right? You've earned the right to drive the cup of acid truck.
Yeah.
Right? And saving all the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that shit's got to move.
Yeah, and they don't hire just anybody.
No.
This company
classifications and everything else.
How could you, for the love of God?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. This company I'm with now, somebody has to die or retire to get in there. And luckily this guy retired, so I was able to slide in there.
Nice.
But yeah, I was over the road.
Well, thank God someone died. That's good.
Yeah, well, he retired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Retired.
Morbid fucker.
I'm just saying.
So, I mean, in between that 14 years of me driving truck, I bounced around between probably 10 different trucking companies. And every single time I have gained experience not only on like a delivering level, but also from the shipping level. I've trained drivers. I am a certified defensive driving instructor on a commercial level. So now I know how to tell drivers, oh, okay, look, you should really do this instead of that so they don't get an accident, shit like that.
And you, why 10 different places in 14 years?
In transportation, there's a 65% turnover rate. Companies are waving money in front of their face. We need you over here. We need you over here. There's such a big driver shortage.
Correct. Yeah.
Drivers are going everywhere.
And so you're moving from here and staying there for a year to get that sign-on bonus and more cash, and then the people across the street offer you more cash and better benefits or a bigger sign-on bonus or whatever it is, and you're just jumping.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and I wanted to be local too, because when I was over the road, it sucked. On my family, it ultimately caused a divorce between my wife and I. We were separated for only, a short amount of time. We got back together. We've been together since. But it's fucking hard, when you're away from your family.
Because you were away from the family, the long haul part of it? Okay.
Yep. I owned my own truck at one point, and I was on the road for 3 months straight building up cash for repairs.
Right.
And my transmission went out in North Carolina. And I had to, I don't even remember how much it cost, but it took everything, all my cash that I had saved up, and I had to use my Visa. That sucked.
Yeah.
I got back in town, traded the truck in, bought a Volkswagen Jetta.
Of course. Jesus.
It was
Japanese, fucking German. Make up your goddamn mind, man.
It was a Jetta GLI though, so it was like the race version. Had the Recaro bucket seats.
Sure.
I had a T4 turbo on it.
Still,
so
it was
fast.
It's German from what happened to Japanese.
Well, I just love cars in general.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm a Ford guy or a Chevy guy. I just love cars. Which brings me to where I'm at now. So right now, I make the best money I've made yet. I figure this year I'll make 87 grand. Now, that's nothing. That's not a lot when I'm comparing it to somebody's salary who, says, oh, okay, I've been doing this for, all these years. I've got, I'm getting paid $32 an hour, whatever. And they're making, over 100K, 115K, like I know people who do. But this is the most money I've made yet. 87 grand. My plan is to make 100 grand this year. And I know I can do it.
So you're making 87 grand how?
Driving truck.
Yep. And you're 14 years into driving truck. I think you said 35 years old?
Yeah, 35.
35 years old, you're making 87 grand. Now think about this. And this is the problem with putting, and you probably know what I'm going to say, this is the problem with putting numbers, using numbers as our barometer. How far is I just had this conversation with another friend of mine who has a background that would blow all of us away growing up. He's going to come in and sit down and talk on the podcast. But kidnapped as a child, West Hollywood growing up, the heroin addict for 30 years, the worst, sisters, parents, as bad as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And he is going back to school. But we talked about, for him, think about where he is now, clean as a 40-year-old going back to school finally, because he sees that as a negative. He was down on himself because it's taken him this long to get here. And I said, no, I don't think so. I'm looking at that as a win. Look at where you started from to get where you are. So I will say the same thing to you, maybe not the drastic kind of thing that he had to go through, nor the number of years. Yeah. You're 35 years old, dude. Where were you 20 years ago?
I was a shithead.
Right?
Yeah.
You were half retarded, no education, don't know shit, nothing.
Right.
But you got one thing.
Right.
Work ethic.
Yeah.
You go to work. You got your wife, thank God, who straightened you out.
Yeah.
But how far is that? Let's say the 87 is 587.
Right.
The number doesn't matter when you go from zero and nothing and no options and no opportunity to $87,000 a year in 15 years.
Right.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate it.
And it should be viewed, though, as impressive. Guys who come from where we come from too often look at somebody like me, right, and say, well, look what he makes. And then I might look at somebody further up the ladder and say, look what he makes.
Right.
I don't. I go, I was lucky to eat, right? I took a job. I went to work every day because I wanted to eat at the end of the day. Fucking IHOP, when I was 12 years old, they let me wash dishes. I would have done it for the sandwich, for the club sandwich and the French fries that I got at the end of it. I literally would have worked for that. Fuck the rest of the money they gave me. When the check showed up, that was a bonus. But I was happy to go to work because I got to eat. Now, take that to where you are today, right? Take staying at Kings Row Motel, and now you're making $87,000 a year as a 35-year-old. That is something that you should, and you want to make 100, and you should want to make more. But let's not belittle or compare your number starting from less than zero to get to 87,000. That's fucking impressive as hell. But 50,000 is impressive. Having a full-time job is impressive. Having a profession is impressive. Having a certain level of credibility and being able to drive the, one cup will kill the fucking planet or whatever the acid program was. All of that's impressive, man. I love the stories, and I think that we all need to take a step back. Anybody listening to this needs to take a step back and appreciate where you come from, particularly if you come from humble beginnings, and what it takes to get to make $87,000 a year. Because that's a shit ton of money, because you knew what you would do with $18 an hour back in the day.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know exactly where I was going. And the thing is, I have my friends in my life right now. I have my old friends in my life still. My friend Carl, he is homeless. He doesn't have a job. He's an alcoholic. Him and I were really, really good friends. I spent the night at his house I don't know how many times. We were super tight. He was an alcoholic by 16.
Yeah.
And he's fucked. I mean, he's homeless. He has no work ethic, no nothing. And so, I mean, I see him because I see him walking the streets of, my neighborhood. But I just push myself away from all of that. I can't have any of that shit in my life.
Right.
I can't have them bringing me down.
Yep.
And, I just wish that they had thought that way too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It is so difficult particularly when you're a kid. And I don't know how.
So pliable.
Yes.
Just malleable.
Right.
I mean, yeah, and that bothers the shit. I mean, because my oldest daughter is 16. She has a job, not quite full time because she doesn't need to work full time. We got her a car. We pay for her insurance. I don't want any pressure on her whatsoever, but she's got that work ethic, and I love it.
Right. Yeah, and there's nothing the matter with that. I got to answer an email. There we go, or text. There's nothing the matter with that. In fact, I'm a big believer in good for her. She has a job, but your job is to help her out. I'm a big believer in that. When I was a kid, I remember hearing all of the time how I didn't need to go to school and I didn't need to go to college and I just needed to get my ass out and get a job. And
Right.
and that's what you need to do. That's called easy parenting, in my opinion. Okay. The easy parenting is to yell at the kid to get your ass out there and get a job. There are good parents who get their kids out and have a job and then do the rest of the parenting jobs, right? The rest of the parts that come with parenting. But for me and the people around me and my family and the kids in the neighborhood and kind of the poor where I come from, get a job, man. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
That's what get a job meant.
Yeah.
We don't want to see you around here. We don't want you here. Get the fuck out. We got shit to do. We don't want to be bothered with it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where I came from. So when I had my kids, I said, my kids, they're going to know how to stand up on their own. I'm never going to help them. They're going to be independent. They're going to be fierce. They're going to be tough. They are all those things, but they've never been punched in the face. I didn't understand that how you even can survive without being punched in the face. How can you get through life without being punched in the face? So much of who I am comes from being punched in the face.
I'm right there with you.
But I realized something. I had my CEO group tell me, I was telling them this about 10 years ago, and I was frantic as I get, which is, I'm talking about it. But I was like, guys, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, what can I do to toughen? I thought I needed to toughen my kids up because of this background. And this is 9, 10 successful guys. They're, you know, at the time they're in their 50s and 60s, and now they're in their 60s and 70s. And almost to a guy, they laughed at me. They're like, man, we come from middle class. My dad had a business when I was a kid. We went to college like you're supposed to. We graduated from high school like you're supposed to. And we went off to college. Maybe we went into the military and we got out and we came back and we started business, or we worked in my dad's business or whatever it is. And then I went out and started my own business. However it manifested itself, or I went into the business world and then I ended up owning my own business for all of these different reasons. And all of them were like, no, man, you're the exception, not the rule. And so much of who I am is based on where I come from, but that's the exception. So helping your daughter out, helping her pay her insurance, get her a part-time job with a little bit of money in her pocket, I think builds a foundation under her. If you're teaching her all the other lessons that we are supposed to, not let it run to her head, don't let her be a spoiled brat, all the rest of those things, right? And I know you're not doing that. But that's the work. But if you do that work and then layer it with these other things, I think that's how you get a more well-rounded person. And I think that the easy way out is get the fuck out and get a job.
Right. Yeah. You know, I always think, okay, your kids are a direct reflection on you. My kids, Jerry, you met Haley, my oldest one, just super kind, you know, uses their manners. I don't want to have that kid in the store that's screaming and yelling. That has never been any of my kids. Sure. They know better than that. They won't be that. So yeah, manners and all that shit are really big to me.
But you have to work on that. That's called being a parent.
Right.
And so many of us don't want to be parents. They don't want to put that time in. My children would no sooner yell they knew if they yelled in a store or a restaurant, mom would grab them up and they'd disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife didn't fuck around for 2 seconds. And my kids, again, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, the whole 9 yards for just that reason. But we say it so easily, but I think that it's, and that gets lost. And all you parents, you know, the funny thing is, we're a bunch of parents out there telling you motherfuckers don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, all right, you know, go home, lay down, close your eyes, and I dare you to fucking think about this,
right?
Because it's hard to swallow when you know the reasons why, but you don't do it because it's work,
right?
It's hard work. You spend time. That girl was out with you Saturday morning at my house, hanging with her dad. It's the best fucking thing you can do.
Love it,
right? Instead of running with her girls, or she didn't want to get up in the morning, or whatever it is, it takes work to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, going back here, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
You had done a lot of fighting when you were younger.
Yeah.
Why did you fight? Was it because you had nothing to lose, or was it because you were just an asshole?
So, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a combination, all above. Now I'm 15 years older than you are, so I grew up in a different time than you did. And when I grew up, you know, fighting and gangs and drugs, particularly the crack epidemic, the cocaine epidemic, all of that, I grew up. I was 8, 9, 10 years old through 20 years old at the height of the worst, which was, you know, the late 70s and through the 80s. And so there was a feeling on the street that if somebody looked sideways at you, either you defended yourself or they were going to take from you.
Right.
And so I didn't even have to be an asshole. And I wasn't getting beat up because I was an asshole. I was getting into fights because somebody looked at me. And if I didn't look back at them a certain way
you
didn't throw blows, then you were in trouble, because there's a whole victim mentality that happens on the street that you have to confront. And if you don't, if you're known as that guy that can be picked on, then pretty soon that's all that word spreads and you're getting picked on all the time. I mean, I remember when I went to high school at Grant High School, you know, these fights that they portray in movies and these fights they portray online. I mean, none of that shit. That's not how it fucking works. Because I've been walking down the hallway in between classes and two dudes, I'm behind one in front and the other dude's coming the other way, and they literally look at each other in passing, and then the other guy grabs the other guy's hair and the fucking fight's on. All they did, Jesus Christ, man, I was just walking behind the dude. They weren't talking, nothing.
Yeah.
So
you just looked at him wrong.
Yeah, you just looked at him wrong. And there was such a sense of There was nothing. I mean, again, this is in the 70s and the 80s. It's a very different world today. It's a very different world even 10, 15, 20 years ago than the poor world I grew up in. That level of, again, when I got rolled by those guys over on 82nd, threw me under a bus stop, and I had to get my way home. Yeah. Think about it. I'm passed out. My fucking nose is broken. How much does your nose bleed? Both eyes are black. Yeah. I took a bus.
Yeah.
Right? And then I got off and fell asleep under a tree on a busy intersection, Gleason and 82nd. And then I woke up 2 hours later, passed out, climbed on another bus and took it down, and then walked half a mile home. Nobody fucking helped me. Nobody stopped to help. Nobody said, oh, that poor guy, right? They was like, what's with the homeless dude fucking bleeding down his front?
Yeah.
It was just a different mindset. So fighting was as normal as anything else. It was as normal as breathing. It was as normal as eating, right? And if you didn't want to get in a fight, you watched what restaurant you might walk in. You go into a different Taco Bell maybe or whatever, whatever. You don't walk through that park because and there was a level of violence also that was much more prevalent than it is today. Crime is down, I think it's 50, 60% since the 80s. The incarceration rates are way up, right? So a lot of them motherfuckers are off the streets. Yeah. When I was a kid, it was a fucking free-for-all, and all you did is fight. I mean, that's what you did. It's like, I gotta walk home. Okay, well, you're going to pass two dudes, and the chances are two groups, and the chances are one of them are going to want to do something.
Right.
Because I have to fucking go home. I got to go downtown to get home.
You got to go through that neighborhood.
And no matter what you do, someone's going to want to come at you.
Right.
That's why the time I told the story where I punched that girl.
I don't know. It sounds familiar.
Here we go.
So I'm just to our point. I'm living over in Northeast Portland on Sandy. And there was a back road to this pool hall that I would go down and play pool at, Sandy Lanes. They had a pool hall and a bowling alley. The place burned down years ago. And this was in the 80s, right after all of the Laotians had come in from the killing fields in Cambodia and Vietnam, right? So, the Khmer Rouge was over there just fucking killing. Pol Pot was killing everything that moved. So these, in the 80s, in the late 70s and early 80s, these boats would arrive. They called them the boat people, and these families would be on these boats just by the hundreds. These fucking boats would just be hunkered down. Well, a bunch of them moved over into Northeast Portland. The nastiest fuckers I ever met were the boys largely that climbed off of that boat. Now, they're not any bigger than, you were big by their standards, Billy. I mean, these dudes, they're Vietnamese, they're Cambodians, they're 16, 17 years old. They've seen their family laying in fucking ditches with their heads hacked off. Right. Okay, then they come over here. They're not intimidated by the giant that I am relative to them. And in my world through the 70s and 80s, having size meant something. Right? This is before jiu-jitsu and all the rest of it. This is just whoever could fucking take the biggest punch and lay one back out. That's typically who won these fights. And so having size was a huge advantage. So I'm walking down in between somewhere I'm not supposed to be over in Northeast Portland. And I know I'm not supposed to be there, but fuck them. That was my take. So a bit of an asshole that way. And again, there they are on the stoop. And the sister of, the group comes out. She's probably 16 years old. She's about this tall. And I'm 4.5 feet tall, 5 feet tall, and she just starts on me, poking me like I knew was going to happen, only it comes from a chick. And she's like, "You're going to hit me? You're going to hit me?" And I was like, "You better stop touching me." And then she slaps me. And I was like, "You going to hit me?" And she put her chin up. I was like, "All right." I fucking hit her so hard. That poor thing. Again, but I was a 16-year-old animal. And then off comes the boys, and they just got you by 6 or 7 at a time. And those dudes had it tough. I had a lot of respect for them dudes because they had it ugly. And that's where they came from. And then a bunch of them, they lived like 6 or 8 or 10 people in these little 500, 700 square foot apartments. They were some tough fuckers. It'd be interesting to see where they are now. But that was, again, I knew if I walked down there, well, I didn't know I was going to have to punch a girl, but I knew walking down there that I was going to get into trouble because that's just what you did. When we'd go to the pool hall, I don't know, I went to the pool hall 1 out of 2 times you got in a fight. Yeah. For no reason other than you were at the pool hall.
Yeah.
So that's what you do.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think it was anything. That's a long-winded answer, I understand, but I don't think it was anything specific. I think it was just that was the life. And then
from
life that changed over time.
That toughened you up.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it does. Yeah, I mean, you learn. This is the problem. This is the thing. It toughened me up. It made me who I am. But it's not what you have to have some level of success.
Yeah.
To me, it's part of who I am. But I've learned that that's the exception and not the rule. And there are tons of rich people and tons of successful people. Tons of people who have been married for 25 years and have great kids and have gone on to be successes, and their kids have gone on to be successes. There's tons of people who have changed their family, changed that generational poverty dynamic without necessarily having to have lived through this. There's tons of people who have come from middle class and let's say even rich backgrounds that have gone on then themselves to be middle class and rich without ever getting punched in the face. So I'm not an advocate that you have to go through that. I think you can learn that. And I had to learn that myself because it's so anathema to what I am. It's so the opposite of who I am.
I could just say that I sort of relate to that. In junior high and high school, I was a short, little, fat, redhead kid. And I'm Spanish, Mexican, native. So, I mean, I got tan skin, red hair, and I was short and fat. I got picked on.
Right.
I got into a lot of fights.
Yeah.
My wife and kids, they've never seen me fight.
Sure.
Why? I have everything I need.
Right.
I don't need to show, this guy that, hey, I'm not going to take your shit. Well, just back off, leave us be.
Sure.
But it definitely changed my mentality.
Right.
I don't take any shit.
Right.
I try to tell it how it is. Now, I've gotten pretty soft over the years. My wife gives me shit all the time. She calls me a puss all the time.
If anything, what it taught me, though, along those lines is that it grew it helped grow my ego, that I was able to survive that in such a way that now I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And by the time I was in my late 30s, early 40s is when I really started not to give a fuck. And but I was able to learn to not give a fuck because it gave me an ego having survived it.
Yeah.
As such that I was able to then just say, if you cut me off in traffic, it's not the end of my life.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill me. In fact, that was a good move. And my feelings don't necessarily get hurt. But we would fight. My best friend, we were in multiple fist fights. And then when we drove to the basketball court together.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we had to get in the car. And then chances are one of us was supposed to buy Taco Bell.
Right.
And it's not like you can't do that. And then you go home and watch the basketball game and you're fucking nursing the knot you got on your cheek.
The whole way you're driving. You're an asshole. No, you are.
No, you are. Right. Because he fucking punched me or I
Right.
punched him. So, that was just, it's hard to understand if you don't come from it. But if you come from it, it's almost a way of communicating, in an old
Neanderthal
school way,
in you.
in the Neanderthal in me, it's a way of communicating. So, that's interesting. I'm convinced you don't have to do it though. So let's talk about this. Your 87 grand, 100 grand is your number. How are you going to get there? What's the plan for moving on and up? Because I know you're not just doing trucks, or I know you're not just driving truck.
Right. So I also detail on the side. I'm obsessed with cars. I like keeping them clean.
Let's define obsessed. Tell us about when you were in LA. Where'd you go visit?
Okay, so I was in LA
you fucking psycho.
I was in LA for work, and then I had been watching this YouTube channel for years and years, and they're actually the ones who taught me how to detail. And they have a business, a storefront, and I'm like, I have to visit this place. I have to. It's like on my bucket list of things to do, just to go see this garage. And I went over there and bought a couple small things, and I was talking with the manager, and he's like, dude, do you want a tour? I'm like, yeah. Are you kidding me? So I got to check out their detail bay. I got to see all the cameras that they use. I got to see all their lifts that they have. I got to see their warehouse. I got to see their production end. I was walking around, I'm like, oh yeah, you shot that video there with that car, and you did that over there, and I just loved it.
Nerding out hardcore.
Yeah. So I like to detail. So that's actually how Jerry and I had met, is through our mutual friend Jamie. Jerry needed his old man's, or your old father-in-law's truck.
Yeah. Right.
So it was dirty.
My father-in-law died, and we had to sell his truck, so we had Daniel come out and
Clean it up.
and shine it up.
Yep, me and my daughter came out there and got her all nice and clean, and then we started talking cars. And now I know you're really modest and you don't like to talk about all the stuff that you have, so forgive me here, but
How about it?
dude, you got some rad cars.
I do have some nice cars. Yeah, there's a nice one out there or two.
Yeah. So I was
3
like,
or 10.
yeah.
Shut up, Billy.
I didn't take any pictures, so
Yeah.
I mean we're good.
Right.
But yeah, I was just I love the fact that you were showing me your cars and you were telling me all the different stories about, you know, each one and what it meant to you, and I think that was super rad. I'm not trying to be a detailer. I'm just a guy who knows how to detail. I don't have any ads out. I don't say, oh, okay, you know, come see me. I only do stuff for friends or friends of friends. That's all I do.
Okay.
And that's I don't plan on going any further because right now it's fun. Would I like to detail? Would I like to have a detailing business? Sure. I'd like to manage it. I'd like to own it, but I don't want to be doing it because right now it's fun. Ideally, I'd like to have a detailing supply business.
Okay.
There's only 4 within, I think it was 15 miles of where I live. And each one of those are all commercial level. There's no residential level. The only thing you can do is you can go to AutoZone and buy their shitty stuff. And even then, they don't have everything that you need.
Okay.
So ideally down the road, that's where I'd like to be, is to have that business. You know, you come see me when you're ready.
Right. And give up the trucking?
Yeah.
Or do it both at the same time?
No.
I
you know, like when Jordan ended, he ended on a high level. I'm on my high level right now.
Right.
I'll do this for as long as I need. But ultimately my heart is in owning my own detailing supply business.
Right on.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's if you could. It's there.
It is.
It's there.
But I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, you just got here. Stay here for a minute, right?
Yeah.
You know, kind of hang at this level. So now you got multiple kids. You didn't say. You said 16-year-old girl. I met your daughter.
Yep. And then a 10-year-old.
Okay.
Taylor. Yeah.
A boy, girl,
Girl.
girl. So
Yeah.
2 daughters.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. 3 girls in the house and you.
Good.
Yeah. that makes for interesting times. But good for you. The wife and you are still together 20 years, going strong. Because again, that bucks the trend too.
Yeah.
You know, the earlier you get married, the earlier you get divorced.
Yeah.
Is kind of how it goes. I'd have never been married if I got married when I was 28, and if I got married when I was before 28, I wouldn't be married anymore. Had I had kids when I was your age, I'd have been the worst fucking father. It happens for a reason. Clearly, it's worked for you, and I applaud you for that because that is definitely bucking the trends that are against you. And they're the trends that I've seen. We were talking the other day. I don't remember if it was in the podcast or when. You know, I have friends that can take a picture with 5 generations because they were born when mom was 16, and then they're 16 when they got pregnant, which is when I was 16, and then they have a daughter that's 16, and then the daughter got pregnant at 16, and then of course grandma being the people that I know that I grew up with, their grandmother's in her 70s or 80s. Their mother is in their 50s or 60s. Well, they're probably in their 60s now. Grandma's in their 70s, and they've got a 30-year-old daughter, and the 30-year-old daughter has a 16-year-old daughter who's pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Multiple people I know like that. And that is where that typically goes, at least, well, we know statistically speaking, that's where that goes.
Yeah.
So again, congratulations to you to bucking that trend because you understand you should be divorced, kids on the weekends, not there every day for your daughters. And it can't be spoken loudly enough how important fathers are to their daughters. I mean, it is to their sons also. But, you know, so many of the people that I know as teenagers had shitty fathers and then went off. And what do girls do when they're 17 years old when dad doesn't pay any attention to them?
They got issues.
They go find fucking father figures who will pay attention to them. So pregnant, married, divorced, multiple kids, multiple men, multiple kids, which again, it's bad decision making. I was going to say I'm not judging, but it is bad decision making. There's no 2 ways around it. And you have to live with the ramifications of those bad decisions. But that's where I should be. that's where you should be. That's where we should have gone. And to beat those trends by making a good decision. I have clear, though, in my head, I know exactly why I made the decisions that I did. I had epiphanies along the way that kind of told me, turn left instead of right, turn right instead of left at this point. To me, it sounds for you like it was a little bit more organic than that. You had some things happen that told you wanted to do this, but the best thing that happened to you was that you got pregnant.
Right.
Because that's really what shook you, and you had the wife kind of hitting you over the top of the head, and then you bring the daughter in at the same time, and that's the one that straightened you out.
Yep. Absolutely.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
anybody listening, that's impressive. That's if you can do it, how hard is it for people who don't have to deal with all of that? And I think your story is probably more representative of most people that are out there, and you're talking about what's possible. Tell me again why you can't make $80,000 a year and you have no education.
Yep.
You know, because the one thing I heard when we started this last year, before Billy, what we got all the time was, I'm 25 years old, nobody will hire me.
Horse shit.
It's such fucking horse shit.
That's horse shit.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, 25. Let's see. I don't remember exactly how much I was making, but I mean, it was definitely more than all of my friends.
Right.
I mean, I was over the road. It sucked, but it got me to where I'm at now.
Right. You're out there humping it. See
Right.
that? But it's that mentality. But these guys,
I give him shit for the same praise.
Every time I hear humping,
it's fucking
Out there
humping
humping
it.
it.
What are you talking about? What? Maybe that means something to you younger dudes. No.
hey, real quick before we head out,
Yeah.
got something behind that curtain for you.
You snuck it back there. I didn't
did.
even see it.
What
Yeah,
do you got?
behind that red curtain.
Oh, I hit the fucking. So I need to pull this.
Yeah.
off.
So
It's from Dollar Tree. What'd you get for me here, man? You didn't have to bring me something. Jesus. And the winner is... You've been listening. Yeah, that's how I know this dude's been listening right here for the camera. For anybody listening, he got me some dollar store. Now this isn't fucking funny. He got me some dollar store Tutti Frutti cereal and a malt oatmeal Tutti Fruities. That is too funny. And then a big O sign that says Spotify. Dude,
Because
you
you always
thought we were
forget.
changing, man.
Yeah.
There, or you thought we were joking. There it is, right there.
and some earplugs.
Oh, that is a guy that we know who's been listening to the stories for sure. That is awesome. My wife brought home some Fruity Pebbles the other day. That's
Break that
hard,
diet?
man. No, it's hard, dude. Those Fruity Pebbles are so
Dude,
good.
You know how many chemicals are in there?
Oh, yeah, they're so good. Those chemicals are so good.
Mine's the Reese's Puffs. Those ones will get me every time.
No, see, they didn't have those when I was a kid, so it's got to be
Delicious.
Captain Crunch.
It's got to be Captain Crunch or honeycomb. And the thing about honeycomb was smart because they were big, right? And that was their whole advertising campaign when I was a kid. Was
Get the
they
big
had
bucks.
a song. It was like. You're gonna make me
Do it.
fucking sing it.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
It was like honeycomb's big. Yeah. It's not small. No. And then they had like the
Beautiful.
fuck you, Billy. They had like the honeycomb hideout, and it was all cool, right? And they'd eat their honeycomb in the hideout, which was a tree house. I bet you could find one of the.
Probably.
Look it up real quick. Let's see if you can find that real quick. But it came in a big exercise box, even though it wasn't probably by volume anymore, and they were just puffed up. But you thought you were rich because you had honeycombs, and the
sure.
box was so much bigger. So when you're a kid, remember how little the box of the one my wife brought home of Fruity Pebbles was gigantic box. You know, it's like an industrial size box,
Yeah,
but the normal
family
box
size.
is little tiny thing. That's why I had to guard that shit when I was a kid at Christmas because my fucking brothers would eat that shit because the Fruity Pebble box isn't that big. Did you find it?
I think so.
Yeah, the
see if
honeycomb
we got
commercial. There, 1970s. That's it. Check it, Billy. That's the one.
I've never seen
Look at
this.
how big. Boom.
Nailed it.
Wow.
I haven't heard. Dude, was I lying?
That is beautiful.
I have not seen that or heard that in 40 fucking years. Yeah. Don't tell me Don't tell me advertising doesn't work, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I remember that. Did I nail the song?
You nailed the song.
Fucking 40 years later. That is awesome. I love the internet, too. Check it. You found it just that easy.
Yep.
All right. Daniel, that was fun, man. That
Appreciate
was easy,
it.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, I think, what are we? We're an hour and 15 minutes in.
Yeah,
Give
hour
or
and
take.
10.
Hour and 10 minutes. Goes by like this,
Not
doesn't
bad,
it?
yeah.
I love your story.
Appreciate it.
I love it. Anybody listening should too. That wraps up this. Fucking gotta read this. I really got it. See, the problem is that I read it
76 times
Hey,
that
fuck
he's read
off.
it.
We've explained. It's not 76. How long have I had this piece of paper?
This is 76.
Before then, I worked off my phone for how
This
long?
is true. That was, I don't know, probably 20 episodes.
Yeah. All right. So let's
So
get
50 times.
Let's get the number right. That's all I'm asking you. The problem is that I've always read it.
Yeah.
Right, so trying to
Haven't tried to
memorize
memorize
it, yeah, I don't know. It's fucking with my brain, or I could just be too stupid to memorize it. That wraps up this episode. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, Google, and Reddit. Jerry Brazie on all of them. Send us questions too. questions@jerrybrazie.com. And you too could be sitting right where Daniel is and telling us your story. That was fun, Daniel. I appreciate it. Remember, people, opportunities are everywhere, as Daniel just told us. If you were listening for the last hour, he is the epitome of that. But you got to go get them. They're not going to come to you. Peace.
Peace.
Later.